Why
No,
did Dr. Fauci go to great lengths to promote the wet market theory? Why did he have so much invested, it seems like, in this Eco Health Alliance, which we knew that his department gave grants to and that they were doing gain of function research
well,
in
the
China?
$38 billion plus program for biodefense largely involved gain of function and other uh, uh, related genetic alterations of pathogens to make them more transmissible or to cause them to gain a new function, like instead of affecting just your lungs, it could affect your brain or it could affect your central nervous system. I mean, these were functions that were, we believe, based on our scientific analysis, and I had world-class PhD and PhD MDs involved in our effort from the national laboratories, from Fort Detrick, the Army's Biological Defense Command, the National Center for Military Intelligence. People, we had people working for us whose whole life was about biological warfare and dual use capabilities, which, if they got out, could essentially become weaponized. And frankly, almost every scientist in the government that I initially consulted with, and including a few that are veterans, of including a couple of Nobel laureates I spoke to, everyone said that they thought the sequence had oddities that looked bioengineered in them. And that's exactly what Fauci's experts told him. And then he panicked, obviously, because that meant that his own program to create and endow these supernatural properties in these viruses via genetic engineering, including funding millions and millions of dollars of research in China, most specifically in Wuhan, but also at other labs that we know to be affiliated with the Chinese military, such as the Harbin Veterinary Research Institute in northern China, which is the largest animal related biological experimentation center in the world. The U.S. government was funding these programs in China that were being run by the Chinese People's Liberation Army, and we didn't even know who they were. And what came out yesterday is that Fauci basically admitted he had no idea what was happening in Wuhan. He had no idea who these Chinese scientists were. They have no oversight and accountability. It's outrageous inside the entire public health bureaucracy in our U.S. government, where, like, the military calls it the self-licking ice cream cone. I've never quite figured out how that works, but it's what we do know is it's a feeding frenzy where people become a part of this dangerous research sort of syndicate or mafia, and then they run into limitations, for example, with doing certain types of experiments in the United States due to the framework that Fauci himself was involved in passing, this PC30 framework on restricting gain of function research. So they just did what Fauci said. He said, I'd rather have it happen in Wuhan than Hoboken. So they farmed it out to Wuhan.
But so,
And then
but
the Chinese started to use it for their own malicious purposes to develop dual use research capabilities that one of which unfortunately leaked from a laboratory where it had been essentially synthetically developed. That's what came out of our State Department intelligence community-wide investigation, was the degree to which the gain of function wasn't just involving injecting animals with each other's blood and things to try to passage and create a sort of natural like transmission where you could simulate natural exposure to different pathogens interspecies. They were altering the genetics of the sequence, and then they were testing the newly created, we'll call it COVID-19, which was created well before it leaked, we believe, and somehow or another, in the context of lab testing and potentially the development of a vaccine, which we would consider an antidote in the world of biological warfare, they leaked it. And I don't think it was, I do not believe, based on everything we've seen, it was deliberate. But the cover up was systematic and deliberate, and went all the way up to the level of Xi Jinping. And Fauci didn't know a damn thing about this. What's amazing is here's this guy who's getting paid, much more than the president of the United States, because he has two jobs, one of which is NIAID director, the other one is biodefense czar. And he doesn't even study the intelligence on what our adversaries are doing, what their capabilities are, what their intent is, what their ambitions are. And he ends up funding it. which is, frankly, I'll say batshit crazy in my experience. And I'm sorry to speak like that, but it's really, it's outrageous. It's ridiculous. And, now in some ways, I don't say that Fauci's got 27 million dead people around the world's blood on his hands, because that's what the excess mortality statistics show has occurred since the outset of COVID 4 years ago. But he contributed to it, and materially, and then he helped orchestrate, ironically, with the Chinese, not necessarily in direct cooperation, but for his own motives. He created a sort of Wuhan gate, we'll call it, where he's he steered the narrative away from a potential lab leak as an origin, because it would imply that his funding was in the middle of